the show. All right. Let's see.
Is it going to be on Discord as well?
Yeah, I'm about to right now. I'm trying to get the live stream started first, and then we'll go from there. Give me 10 seconds.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So let me share in the Discord, and we'll get started. Oops. Boom. Nope. That's cool. Oops. What's happening here? Screen share, screens. All right. Cool, guys. Sorry for the late start. We were wrapping up some of the live stream plus crits and stuff. Which, if you guys aren't part of that, I mean, what are you doing? You know what I mean? What's the holdup? So, but a lot of cool stuff in there happening right now. We're covering a lot of the homework and stuff and doing crits and all that. So, but hi, how's it going? Sorry, I'm still a little nasally. If you guys couldn't tell, I'm getting through the mucusy section. So if you guys get the benefit of getting to hear me do that live. So, but let's do it. All right, guys. We're starting the second week of prop design, right? So last week, I guess a little bit of cover on what we did last week. We basically just gathered some references and just started just painting. You know what I mean? All we did was just kind of look at some references and start forming ideas slowly, right? Usually, generally speaking, whenever I start an assignment, I'll spend probably a good half day kind of doing all that stuff, right? We'll start, gathering references, doing studies, and really figuring out what the hell we're even doing. You know what I mean? So this week, this is kind of where I start gathering all my references and start organizing it, right? And I kind of want to really push that idea of organizing your references, because something that happens a lot is that we gather our references, right? And it just kind of, you know what I mean? It's just in a folder. We put it onto PureRef, and it's just this huge just pile of images that really don't help anybody, right? And there's this idea that, when you first gather reference, you kind of know what you're looking for, right? Especially like if you're, I guess if you're in charge of your folder, right? If you gathered all their images, you kind of know what you're looking at. But the issue is we oftentimes don't know, I guess, how much certain images are affecting us, right? So what happens is when I first started, right, I would gather whatever references that I needed, right? I was like, just Googling everything, put everything on a board, call it a day, right? But as I got better, as I started kind of progressing and even started to create reference boards for other artists, right? Whether it's a junior artist that I'm helping out, or whether, I'm art directing somebody, or, leading a project or whatever, it started becoming super important for me to be hyper specific, because there'd be times where, I'd give someone a reference and I'd be like, oh yeah, like I really like this one little section of it, but don't really use that one. You know what I mean? And look at this one more or whatever. But because it's all in there, they're going to be looking at it and they're going to be like, oh yeah, so he's looking at this thing, so let me use more of that. And they can use it, I guess, in a very overweighted manner, right? Like they'll use that reference too much when I didn't really want them to, right? So this is kind of where really organizing your references comes into play. So I'm gonna kind of break down my thought process when it comes to what I was doing when I was organizing the board, how I came to certain conclusions, right? And then we'll kind of get into design and stuff in a second. But let's see. All right. So let's talk about my idea. So we have the idea, right? Whenever you're first starting, what I want you to think about is, what's the idea? What the hell are you even designing, right? And you'd be surprised how often this actually hits people where they kind of know, but they don't really know. You know what I mean? And this is actually something that a problem that I ran into whenever I was making this board or making this prop, right? I kind of knew what I was doing, right? The idea was I was going to design a camera, right? Because if you don't know, right, it's from the project that I was doing last year. Or last year sounds like forever. 4 weeks ago, and it's for the camera for that car, right? You know, it's in that world that vehicle design that I did, right? That's the Safari car, and then there's going to be the camera that kind of goes with it, right? So I had the idea to design a camera, and I was like, I had some semblance of what I really wanted it to be, but I didn't really quite know. What I started with before I started really diving into this project was I had a vintage camera, and it's gonna be kind of taken over by this spirit. In Japanese culture, there's this thing called a tsukumogami, right? And it's basically the spirit that kind of inhabits props, right? You know, in this this kind of illustration, it's inhabiting this instrument, right? And it's just a spirit that kind of takes over, and they're kind of mischievous, right? And that's kind of all I had, because in the project, the initial project that I had, you know, I had these spirits kind of come down, and they inhabited an old machinery from World War II, and that's how I got that centipede idea from before. And then, you know, we're kind of bringing that idea through further in this project. And so I have this vintage camera, and it's gonna be possessed by this spirit, right? And I was like, well, I don't really quite understand how I'm gonna do this quite yet, and I didn't really know what I was gonna kind of go with it. And I was actually having a really hard time trying to figure out, like, what am I supposed to do with this, right? And this is actually, I've been racking my brain with this for the last like 3 or 4 days. You know, I was like, I don't know what to design, because I can just design, I can put this and then put a face on it, right? Like kind of like what's going on with that prop on the right. But that didn't really quite feel good. You know what I mean? Because this is a game, and then the character is supposed to be interacting with this prop. So I was trying to figure out a couple different things, and I was trying to figure out too many things at once. I didn't really quite know what I was doing. So what I did was I slowed down, and I just thought about the game. You know what I mean? I just thought about how you're introduced into this prop, right? Because whenever we play a game, whenever we do anything, right, there's a moment that happens where you interact with something. There's a cutscene, there's a whatever, right? You acquire this prop somehow. And so for me, I was like, well, what happens? You know, I was thinking, okay, what if we're just sitting there at our desk, and then this camera is just on our main character's desk, and then the spirit kind of comes in and takes it over, right? And then it kind of comes to life. It has a little face on it or whatever. And then it just starts kind of like causing havoc, right? It's just a little prop that kind of bounces around on the table. And then it just starts eating things. You know, I don't know how it's going to eat things. I have a general idea. There's a back camera flap that opens that you put the film inside of. I was like, oh, what if it just starts eating things? And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then what it does is, I was thinking, oh, what if it just starts like eating things on his desk? And then it ate his phone, you know? So I have an iPhone 13. Yeah, I think it's a 13 or 14, one of those, Pro. And I have this Peak Design camera case on it, right? So it's just a normal camera case, and it has this little like attachment to it. It's basically, if you're into photography equipment at all, Peak Design is a pretty popular brand, and they have some pretty cool things. I was thinking, oh, I was just looking at my phone on my desk. It was just sitting there, right? And I was like, oh, what if it just ate it? And then it like kind of like assumed its properties, right? And then the idea started flowing, right? I at the beginning of this, I didn't quite understand what this design was going to be, because I didn't want the character just to be holding an old camera using it. I wanted this to be something that was functionally as good as a camera he would have during his time period, right? But I didn't really quite know what that was going to be, because at this point I just have this random camera. And so, you know, I started kind of walking through the story. And something that happens a lot, right, whenever we're designing props, is we're just designing a thing. So you just kind of like, I just have a thing, I'm going to design it, right? Well, we don't think about the the situation that it took to kind of get to that scenario, right? And so I kind of walked through the animation of like, what this prop was going to do. And I was thinking, oh, what if it's like, just hopping around the desk and the kid's all freaking out, and then it just eats his phone and you're like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden it like magically kind of forms like parts that the phone has. And that kind of like modernizes it. It kind of gives it a better screen. It kind of gives it a case to kind of hold with it. And then, it's this amalgamation of like this vintage camera and then this brand new technology. And then I started like kind of thinking, because how in games I was thinking about Mega Man because that's the game that I grew up with. When he beats a boss character and then, he gets their powers. It's like, oh, that'd be kind of fun. It's like, it's an upgrade system, right? And then the idea started kind of flowing a little more. It's like, oh yeah, what if this camera could like just eat other camera pieces and things throughout the game? And it kind of gives you more things to kind of play with, right? And it started kind of, I don't know, it started like forming this idea. Slowly I started kind of understanding what this could be. And then the idea started like kind of rushing in a little bit more, And the reason I say all this is because, whenever you're thinking about your props, whenever you're trying to design something, right? Yes, there's a combination idea to it, right? Where there's like the camera itself, and then you can like, just combine it with another form language, right? Which is cool. But whenever you start kind of thinking about, I guess, the circumstances that surround this prop, this item, right? The history behind it, what it's doing, how the main character kind of comes into have it or whatever, it kind of will kind of give you more ideas. You know what I mean? So all this just to say, I started kind of working through the idea, right? And this is part of that process. Not everything, I think for me, I didn't want to just kind of come in here with like, oh yeah, this is like the perfect idea. I kind of wanted to show you that as you're designing, you're going to kind of hit some brick walls and you're really not going to understand how this thing comes into play, but really just thinking about it and then try to hit it from different angles, not just through the lens of a prop design, but the lens of story, the lens of function, all sorts of different things to try to make a prop that makes sense and is playable, is fun, it's cool to interact with, so on and so forth, right? So with that in mind, this is kind of what I came up with. It's the vintage camera plus a modern phone, right? This isn't the same iPhone I have, but it's the same general idea. And then the Pokeball idea, right? Because we had that same Pokeball idea from the previous design pass. I'll even show you guys that real quick. Where are you? Here you go. So if you remember correctly, right, this is the reference board that I used to kind of make that safari car that I did in the previous streams, right? And so now it's a new prop, so we have a new, I guess, set of images to kind of use. So this is kind of how I got to that conclusion. These are some of the things that I'm going to kind of go for, and then I'll kind of show you how I go about this in the next couple steps. So really, really long-winded story, right? Kind of ranty, but I just kind of wanted to show you that, really think through these props and what they mean to the story, because especially such a pivotal prop, especially it's the camera in the photography game, so you want to make sure that the prop makes sense story wise, and then you can kind of like get to I guess an interesting conclusion or an interesting thing using different, I guess, a different thought process than usual. You know what I'm saying? So, but let's do this. So this is what we got. I have a vintage camera, right? That's the kind of main thing that we're talking about here. Oops. Boom. Boom. All right. So I have a vintage camera. I have an idea for this, and I kind of want to show you how I want to go about this design. But I'll talk about that in a second. And then I have a modern phone plus accessories, right? Because with the phone, right, there's also like things to kind of go with it. There's in this case, it's just like a bike mount, but we'll make the accessories more relevant to the process that we're going for. And the small, right, I'm going to kind of keep that very small. I just kind of want that to minorly show up. I don't want that to be, I don't want it to straight be a Pokeball, right? Because I still want to keep this in line with the IP that I'm kind of going with, right? So really, whenever I set up a reference board, what I like to do is set up this board right here, right? You can have maybe 1 or 2 more pictures each, but when my artists kind of look at a reference board, especially if I'm showing them a design, or either for myself, I try to keep it very specific. It's the exact camera that I want to use. It's the exact types of things that I want to add into it. And then what I start doing from here is, I can either tell them or for myself, start deciding what the different percentages are, right? So we have our medium reference and our small reference. And maybe you could do something like that where it's like 70% the big idea, and it's like 20% the medium idea and 10% the small idea. And you can adjust this. I probably want this more like 5%. I can probably push this to actually, let's push this to 80%, 5%. What is that? 15? Yeah, 15% here, right? And this is probably closer to kind of what I'm thinking in my head. But the reason we want to do this is because whenever you're designing, right, especially designing props, because we need to be very specific about this, you want to understand exactly how much influence you're using per thing. This way, you can design other props that fit in this world as well, right? One of the biggest things that you want to think about when designing as a whole, right, is not just that you have some references and that they're kind of organized, but also what's the formula that you use, right? How many times have you designed something and you're like, oh yeah, that's a pretty cool design. And then you had to design the next thing, whatever the second prop is, right? And you're like, I don't really know how I got there. I just kind of mistakenly ended it up somewhere, right? You don't want that to happen. So whenever you're designing, right, you want to understand that we want to be specific about our references, right? I usually organize it into a big, medium, small kind of format, right? And then I use percentages. It's not exact, right? Obviously, there's room to kind of push and pull, but, understanding that, you really only want a little bit of this and you want mostly that, right? And it kind of gives you a better understanding of kind of what you're going for. You know what I'm saying? So, but let's do it. Overall, pretty long-winded explanation, and I'm just gonna kind of start designing at this point. But I wanted to talk through that because I just wanted to kind of show you that, the whole journey to kind of get to an idea is not really a straightforward one, right? It's not like so perfect to where it's like, I just have this plus this plus this. Oh, cool. It takes a while. It actually took me a good couple days of thinking. I mean, I was, kind of hyped up on meds, just, like trying to think through NyQuil is not a great idea, but, it did slow me down a second. But the whole idea is, I was thinking about this and I'm like, I don't know where to go with this. You know what I mean? It's just a normal ass camera. So how do I make this cool? And then you kind of add one thing, add another, and then the ideas kind of start racking up. You know what I mean? So with that in mind, the whole point of this is going to be this camera gets possessed by this spirit, and then it starts eating some modern technology, and then starts evolving. It starts becoming something that's a little more functional. So I have some references here that I was kind of thinking about as I was kind of going through this. So where are we at? Okay, so the first thing I thought about, I was like, okay, so how do I combine the two? When you look at references, and it could be, you could design this in a way to where it's like a perfect meld, where it's like, the whole idea is you're looking at two props, and by the end of it, you really shouldn't be able to tell. It's like a perfect mixture. It's like you kind of blended them really well together, right? Everything kind of mixes together nicely, which is a good way to kind of go about things. In this case, I really wanted to show the modularity of this camera, right? So I had a project a little while back. It is the one of the references they gave us was adaptive reuse architecture, right? So what that means is, oopsies. What that means is there's this architecture that's like old, like it's just basically just old buildings that have kind of been broken from like, you know, time. And then instead of like tearing it down and like redoing it, they just added what they needed and reinforced things. So in this case, you see that like old stone building, and then you see like this glass kind of like, you know, extra corner they put on there. Same with like this here where it's that old red brick, you know, architecture, and they put the glass building on top. I mean, you know, Converse idea is kind of ugly, but you know, the whole idea is that they, instead of ripping down the old building, they just kind of added to it. And then, you know, there's some people might say it's ugly or whatever, but the whole point is I really like that contrast between the two different styles. You know what I mean? And so instead of like, whenever I'm mixing these two items, I don't want them to be like a perfect meld between the two. I want it to feel like it's old kind of meeting with the new, right? And I thought of this, I guess, architecture, and I thought it was really cool because I was like, oh yeah, you know, you can kind of see how we can reuse pieces and essentially kind of come up with something that, you know, looks pretty sick. You know what I mean? So obviously it's not going to be a building, but this is the kind of references that I'll kind of look up. And this isn't something that I would show, I guess, my artist if I were to give them a reference board, because I don't want them to latch onto this too much. Maybe I might mention it or I might bring it up, but I'd be very careful to kind of show them like, oh yeah, I don't want them to be, I guess, too influenced. That's why there's a difference between this board here and this folder here with all the other stuff. You know what I mean? So the last thing I want to talk about is there's this old Nikon. Sorry about that. There's this old Nikon. It's the Nikon F2. If you don't know what this is, it's a pretty sick ass camera, and you should buy me one because I really want one. Anyway, so this Nikon F2, there's a you can see the silver kind of body right here, all that right there, and then there's this like black kind of like section on top. There's this the part that says the Nikon logo, and then all the buttons and dials on there. So this camera is pretty cool because it's a modular camera. That top section can come off. But the cool part is the camera, it interacts with the physical body. The body is fully mechanical. And there's two intersections, there's two points in this camera that interact with this kind of top, right? This is separate. You buy this separately, right? And then there's this part here that interacts with the lens, the aperture of the lens. It tells, because this part of the body tells the camera if it's like exposed correctly or not. There's LED sensors in there, right? And so it interacts here, and then it interacts here. This is attached to the top of this dial right here, and it tells this part, the brains, if you're exposed correctly or not. Very long-winded way to say that it's just this different attachment that you could, and there's like different heads that you can kind of put on here. If you know about it, it's pretty cool. If you don't know about it, you should look into it. But because I'm into like older vintage cameras, and I have some vintage cameras myself, these are things that I just randomly pick up, and I didn't know I'd be using it for a project. But the way that it's like, the way it's in there, it's cool because like it's, I don't know, it's like it's real, right? This is something that exists in our lives, and you know, I'm bringing this up because I want everyone to understand that whenever you're designing, right, pull from things that you enjoy, pull from things that you like, and it really makes a difference. Because now, whenever I design my my prop, my camera, right, I have this whole treasure trove of information to kind of pull from, especially on something that is very specific, and it creates this deeper knowledge. And especially if I'm designing a camera, and I kind of pull from existing camera references, you know, it makes your idea a little bit richer. So just something I wanted to point out. You know, just nerdy camera shit, you know what I mean? But it's cool because knowing that, I can then design something that kind of functions in the same way. And that's what I want to do, because if you've ever played any of the later Pokemon games, right? Oops. Where's it at? Boom. There you go. There's this like phone that's like possessed by this other Pokemon, right? It's like this ghost electric type, but it kind of interacts with the phone. It becomes this almost sentient type of phone, and I kind of want that same idea to kind of happen because we're referencing the same IP, so I want my IP to kind of represent that somehow, but in my own kind of way. You know what I'm saying? So little things like that really do go a long way. I have some reference here from Mega Man because I wanted the camera to be able to adapt to other things instead of like you wouldn't have like fire powers or anything like that, but it could be upgraded to have better lenses. It could upgrade to have like better light sensors or whatever it is, different films and stuff like that, right? And so I wanted this prop not only to just be a camera that shoots photos, but something, an item in the game that kind of levels up as you level up, and by the end of it, you have something that is a little bit better. You know what I mean? So long-winded. Very long explanation, but I just kind of want to talk about that. That way we understand kind of where I go whenever I'm designing something. You know what I'm saying? So, all right. So let's get into this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get into 3D and I'm going to start kind of blocking things out. You can do this however you'd like, right? When we're designing our props, when we're kind of moving into our next stages, you can do this in a 2D manner. It's the same idea. We're really just making base kind of proportions and things like that. So you can use 2D like Photoshop or just pen and paper if you'd like. I'm gonna do this in 3D just because this is how I would normally do it, and I kind of want to show like the way I normally go about things, right? I'd probably start with the base 3D model, and then we'll go from there, and we'll paint just like usual and make it all fancy and do what we need to do. But we're going to start with a 3D base, and you'll kind of see how I use that 3D base to kind of adapt into the next, few things, if that makes sense. So, all right. Cool. Let's do this. How's it going, people in the Discord? How's life?
Going good.
Nice.
Good.
Saying
I'm
good. Yeah, good.
also started a server on my own as well. Rachel can kind of vouch for that.
Nice. How's that? I guess for everyone that's starting their own servers and stuff, I guess what's the reason? I'm not like questioning you. I'm just curious.
I'll give you the most genuine answer I can possibly can.
That's all I
For
want.
shits and giggles, honestly.
Nice.
No, the only reason why was because one of my friends, like from back in high school, she works in there we go. She works in Firewalk Studios, but she was like, "Hey, my brother needs some help in regards to world building," and I knew a thing or two. I was like, I mean, sure, like we can discuss a thing or two, and I kept on bringing my friends into it, and then like that becoming one or two, and then it became 3 or more people. I was like, and one of my friends was like, you know what? It's better to just create a server rather than having everyone just be in the group chat. And I was like, sure, why not? I'll start a server.
Nice. Cool, man.
Yeah.
I think as someone that started his own server as well, it's cool. I think for those that are I don't know, like those that are thinking about it, it's fun. I think for me, one of the most rewarding things is seeing people like, I don't know, I guess grow, right? Seeing people like, I guess, learn things that they probably wouldn't have initially learned. You know what I mean? I think having a community or, having artists, especially like in a world where we're also isolated, you know what I mean? Like you can kind of stay in contact with people through like messaging and stuff. But in reality, like it really does, I don't know. It really can feel isolating, and especially where there's so much, I guess, there's so many resources out there that people just aren't aware of. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not kind of ranty, but at the end of the day, it's like, I think if you're ever looking to kind of start something of your own, or if you want to kind of help people, I think like starting a Discord server is great, because I don't know, I think for me I feel like it does so much for people, for everybody. It really does help, like I don't know, foster a community or really help people kind of get through their learning journey just like a little bit quicker. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know where that was going, but yeah. Cool. Look at that, guys. Look at that. This is a camera. Look at that. It's beautiful. So with this project, with this thing I'm doing here, I don't exactly know where I'm going with this, right? I want everyone to understand that. Because what I'm doing here is I'm just designing something. I'm just making something from scratch. Because this camera that I'm designing here, I don't really quite know what it's gonna be. I have like a general idea, but the reason I like kind of working in 3D is because you kind of get a little bit more I don't know, like a more tactile feel to it, right? You can kind of, you can't like grab it, not like VR or anything, but especially in VR, like you can like, when your headset's on, you can like even like pull it up, hold it, like look through it. Oh, it's so cool. But in this case, what I'm doing is I just get to kind of experience it in a bunch of different angles. And especially because this is such a tactile experience, right? Especially a prop. You really want to make sure that you kind of understand it from multiple views. You don't necessarily need to, I guess, be too exact with this. It's not like, it doesn't need to be like 100% perfect. But what I do highly recommend doing is really understanding like kind of the package that you're designing for, right? Because for a camera, there's a section that your hand needs to hold. There's buttons and things that, your pointer finger, your thumb, and your ring finger, generally speaking, or your middle finger, sorry, need to interact with, because, you're going to be holding like this. This button does something. This thumb back here will do something. And then your pointer finger will interact with like the trigger, right? And then because of that, you want to make sure that all of these pieces kind of feel like correct, So right now I have there's this cool thing that, there's a cool thing I like to do, right? Especially when I first start, is if you're bad at modeling, it's actually a godsend, right? It sounds funny, but if you're bad at modeling, try modeling something accurately. It sounds hilarious, but whenever I first started, like I was modeling a car. I can't really model a car. I'm not that good. And so you just try your best. And then from that, you have like a sci-fi version of that car. You know what I mean? So this is the same idea. I'm going to try and model this, but because I'm actually not that good, I can't create it the exact same way. And then you start making like little adjustments here and there. And then all of a sudden you have this cool, different camera. You know what I mean? It sounds hilarious, but I'll kind of show you how this goes about in a second. But it really does help because if you know how to do it, if you're like really good at it, it looks too accurate. You know what I mean? It's like you got too close. It looks exactly like what it's supposed to look like, and because of that, it's like, oh yeah, that's just that camera reference that you were pulling up. You know what I mean? So. I'm just curious, guys. What's the for everyone here? What's the weirdest like interview question you guys have had? There it is.
Hi, Kenny.
Yo, what up?
I'm here today.
Yeah, I missed you. Where you been? Just hanging out?
I have like a church group Tuesday nights. That's what I always am referencing but sometimes we don't have it. That's why I'm here.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, that's my Tuesday nights for you. Anyways,
So
weirdest interview question I have ever been asked was I once got asked if I was a flavor of ice cream, what flavor I would be.
How'd that go?
And that question really annoyed me for some reason because like I like it didn't like really annoy me. I just like I pretended to love the question, you know, in the interview. I got the job, but I was like I just like thought for a second and I was like, I would be chocolate. And they were like, why? And I was like, because I like chocolate ice cream. And they accepted that answer.
Nice. That's
I have no idea what they were like to this day. I don't know what they were looking for with that question.
they probably like ran out of questions to ask, to be honest. That sounds funny. What kind of ice cream would you be? I don't know, man. One that gets paid, you know? That's funny.
Ice cream made of gold coins instead of ice cream.
I'd be lychee flavored because, you know, Vietnamese and lychee people, Vietnamese people and lychee are quite fond of each other, apparently. That's cool. That's a unique one, to say the least. I always think like I haven't had interviewed lately or anything, but I was thinking about like, you know, because I was like, oh, what's your biggest weakness? You know what I mean? I'm like, what the? I don't know, man. I steal company property. Like, what do you want me to say? You know what I mean? Like, it just sounds funny. Like, I don't steal company property. I'm not saying that, but it is like, it's such a funny like I don't know. Question to ask because then you get the either get the fake answer or you get the real answer, and either way it's not what they wanted, right? Because if the fake answer is, oh yeah, because you know I try too hard, you know what I mean, you have to say this like I don't know, this thing where it's like it can be perceived as a strength because you're in an interview, you know what I mean? But I had I have some friends or some students that asked me like, oh, you know, how do you like I had these things and there are these interview questions. I just didn't know what to say, and you know when people ask me that, I'm like, shit, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, because it's such a bad question. I'm not gonna lie. Like if you're an interviewer and if you're ever in it, not you specifically, but for anybody, if you're an interviewer and you're asking these kind of questions, stop being an interviewer. It's not a good question. There's so many things you could ask, you know, that like why do we have to talk about these things? Or like, you know, well, why do you want this job? You know, say, cause you're fucking paying me, man, you know? It's funny because so I'll get these interviews sometimes that you know, I'll just they'll hit me up and you know because you know, job, and then they'll hit me up. They're like, hey, well, we'd like to reach out to you for an interview for, you know, A, B, and C job. Like, no shit, this happened. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, yeah. I'll meet you up. You know what I mean, right? Which is pretty normal. It's not that weird. And then I get the question. I'm like, oh, why do you want to work here? I'm like, dude, you called me. Like, what are you talking about, bro? And it's such a, I don't know, it's such a like a bad interview question that is just like, it just feels like a waste of time. But I'm just kind of ranting, but. All right. Oops.
I think on the flip side of that, though, my favorite interviews are the interviews where the interviewer is just like they kind of just hold like a conversation with you.
Uh-huh.
And because they're so good at like talking and I think leading the conversation, it like relaxes me and I feel like I'm able to just say what needs to be said, or like I don't get like, because when I get nervous, I like my brain just starts shutting down when I need it to like be more aware.
Oh yeah. No, I think
or like being nervous really gets to me.
I think for me, one of the I don't know, like whenever we're talking with like my interview skills with like HR people, like people that are not quite artists, you know what I mean, but they're part of the hiring process. I suck at those. I'm like legit bad at talking with like HR people because like they're the ones that ask those types of questions because it's a standard question to ask, and it's very weird. But I think for me, like whenever I'm talking with like art directors and stuff, or people that are like part of the art process, I tend to do a lot better. Usually because their questions are very direct and they're very like specific to what we do, And I think I respond a lot better to that just because it's just easier to talk to somebody that knows what they're talking about. You know what I mean? I did have a really cool question, I guess, that I reference a lot whenever I'm designing stuff. And what the art director, he walked into the room and he was very confident. He was just, he was pretty cool. And then he just asked me, he's like, "Oh, what's your favorite sci-fi IP?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, so and so, this and that," right? I said Blade Runner at the time. I don't know if that's my favorite now, but at the time it was, it's pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, "Oh yeah," and he goes, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Why?" And it's like I think it's that why that really hit me for whatever reason. Like, I think like because when you hear like whenever I get like questions, right? It's I guess there's the I don't know. It's like you can like we're always told like, oh, we should like a certain thing, or we should there's a certain IP or whatever that we're supposed to like, right? Blade Runner is one of them, so on and so forth. And like whenever he asked me that, it like I had to like stop and think, and then luckily I had an answer for it. But it was, I guess for me, like I think one of the better questions that I've been asked, because they were asking, the reason he asked that was because he was looking for a sci-fi artist, an artist that can do sci-fi things, you know what I mean, like designed for sci-fi. And depending on that answer, he told me later, he was like, "Oh yeah, because I'm looking for," because I asked him about it, and he was like, "Oh, I was just looking for, I guess, how you think and what you kind of prioritize whenever you're designing." I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And yeah, it was fun. I don't know where I was going with that, but it's like, I think for me, I respond well to questions that have like a point, but then you hear like, it's like, "What's your weakness?" It was like, what is anybody supposed to say to that? You know what I mean? Like, if you guys are recruiters, just let me know, because I'm just like, it's such a funny, because you don't want to look bad, because you don't want to be like, you don't want to give them an actual problem, right? Because you don't want to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm a pathological liar." It's like, it's like what? You know what I mean? You can't just say that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't work that way. But I mean, you got to give them something, right? So. Sorry, I'm just kind of ranty. Maybe my sinuses are making me do stuff. Let's see. Let's go. Dude, look at that. This camera is looking like a camera, man. So what I'm doing here is I'm just making shapes, right? And so what I want, as we're kind of designing, right? This is going to start kind of deviating into its own thing in a second. But what I do want to kind of start, I guess, showing is, what types of things do I think about as I'm, kind of adapting here. Right now, I'm just kind of starting off by replicating what I see in my reference, right? Pretty simple, right? We're going to start kind of making, adjustments to this to make it, better, quote unquote better, right? So Oh, dude, that'd be hilarious. Freaking in the Discord chat, Audrey says, "What's your weakness?" And you say art. Oh my god, the balls to say something like that. Ken, this says, when you're told you're overqualified for the job, so why do you want to work in that role that you applied for? I can do the job or not. Why dismiss applicant for that reason? Yes, that's exactly it. My God. I don't know how many of you have got that. I've gotten this before. I was in an interview and they were like, oh yeah, I think you're overqualified for this. And I was like, so you're telling me I can do the job better than what you're asking? So what's the issue? You know what I mean? But usually when they say that, it's usually a bad thing, right? It's usually like they won't hire you basically for whatever reason, you know? And I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? You know what I mean? Like, it's so stupid. Like, how do you, like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you, like, do that? What do you do with that information? You know?
Is it really that you're overqualified, or are they trying to like let you down politely? Because a long time ago, like I got told that once, and I was literally like, trust me, I'm not overqualified for this. This was before I switched to art too, but like I don't know, I feel like maybe it's just like a way to let some people, maybe not everyone, like down easy. Do you think?
Maybe. I mean, I'd hope so, right? I would, you know, you would think so, but I don't know. I've gotten that before because you know, I'd apply for a job or whatever, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we think you're overqualified for this," and I'm like, so what am I supposed to do with this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? Like, how am I supposed to respond to this? Just because I'm like, well, it sounds like I could do the job, so what's the issue? You know? I mean, it's not a huge deal.
I
But
think also it could be like the money.
yeah,
Like,
maybe.
okay, I'm gonna tell you some. Someone was asking, like, do you know any biz dev like friends? And I sent them a bunch of my friends' portfolios, and I said one of them was yours, Kenny.
Uh
And the guy responded, he's really good, but I don't think we can afford him.
huh. I mean, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean that's weird. You know what I mean? I mean, then they shouldn't know my rate. You know? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're true. Maybe they're right. But I mean, it's not that. I don't know. I find it funny where it's like, I think they may or may not be right. I don't know what their budget was, but it is something where it's like, I mean, you know, maybe you could ask, see how that goes. You know? Oh shit, it's funny. I was talking to a client once. And he was looking for a matte painting for his project. If you're watching now, I'm sorry, but you know, I mean, your rate was terrible. I don't think he's watching, but anyway, he was like, "Oh yeah, you know, we're looking for an artist to do a matte painting." I'm like, "Cool, all right, we'll see what's up," you know. And then he was like, "Oh, but our rate is really low." I was like, well, okay, let's talk about it first before we, you know, start dismissing things. You know what I mean? Because when they say that, sometimes it's really not that low. Sometimes it's just, you know, whatever. And so like, we went through the conversation, and then by the end of it, I was like, okay, so what rate are we working with? Now that I know the scope of the project, which is pretty doable, you know, within the I guess the idea of what they were looking for, right? And it wasn't hard, so I was like, you know, I'll go a little cheaper just to help them out or whatever. And he goes, well, our rate's 100. I was like, 100 an hour, or 100, you know, what's the, you know what I mean? And there's like $100 total. I was like, what the? And they wanted like a full scale production from me, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I hope they found their artist, but it's just kind of funny. I thought that was I thought it was a good time. But he was very nice. He was very sweet about it. But yeah, I was like, you can't expect to find a full like they wanted like compositing, like matte painting, design, all of it for like $100. I was like, bro, I don't think you're gonna find anybody for that, dude. But I don't know. Yeah, maybe we'll see it. Maybe we'll see it around. Who knows? Dude, look at that camera. Baby, what's up? All right. So, I have a thing here, right? I have, you know, a thing that looks like a thing. And this is kind of where I'm going to start messing with stuff, right? I have some general ideas that I'm kind of going for. And I want to start making this cooler, right? So just like what we did with the car, if you guys remember correctly from when we started the vehicle from the previous design, I guess design package that we were doing, right? It kind of started very basic like this. And then I started kind of bashing things and I started adding things. And so what I want to do now is I want to placeholder a lot of the different things that are supposed to kind of happen on this, right? So, obviously a lot of the design cues and stuff, I'm going to kind of keep very, you know, very basic. But I do want placeholders to kind of hit the general tone that I'm looking for. What you want to do is this, because details are so hard to, I guess, model out sometimes, right? Like, you know, every single bevel, every little screw, right? You know what I mean? Like it takes a second to do all those. What you want to do in this case is just get the general proportions correct, and then we'll draw on top, right? So this is what I'm going to hit next. Right now, I just have the basic kind of brick, right? The general idea. Very, you know, you can kind of see where it came from. I'm not keeping it exact because I don't need it to be exact. But I need I need to start hitting some of these other parameters that I was trying to go for. So in this case, I'm going to start adding the various pieces, and then we'll kind of go from there, right? I'm going to show you how far I take this before we move into 2D. And then we'll start moving from there. But I just kind of wanted to show you, this is like, you know, me just messing around, me just making something from scratch, right? Keep it very basic, very simple. And then we'll start adding some, you know, quote unquote cooler parts to make this better, right? So, sorry. Let me get another cough drop. I've been eating these cough drops like crazy. It's probably not great for you, but at the end of the day, it's keeping me alive. So, Kenpachi Z, how do you know if you are overqualified? Is the portfolio? I feel that even with the portfolio, the personality speaks for itself as well. Yeah. So how do you know if you're overqualified? I mean, you know, I don't know. You know, it's like, how do you know if you're overqualified, right? It's tough. It's tough to know that. And to be honest, I don't think it's our choice in the matter. You know what I mean? Like it's not us that decides that. You know what I mean? So what I would say is usually it's just because, like, you know, maybe you're applying for like a mobile game studio or something, and you're used to doing like AAA things or whatever. You know what I mean? It could be a whole bunch of different things like that. But usually what happens is it's just because like the skill set that they need is usually like pretty low, or it's not really like, you know, maybe it's like a different type of skill set. You know, it's like maybe you're doing like a lot of icons and stuff versus like, you know, keyframe illustrations. You know what I'm saying? You know, I can't really say for sure. To be honest, I think a lot of it's like, you know, it's like we were saying, it's just so weird that someone, I guess, could be overqualified, right? Just because, you know, if I can do the job well, right, then I mean, I can extra do the job well, right? You know what I mean? Like it's just like, why wouldn't I be able to do that if like, you know, it's like if you could do it, why does it matter, you know? But you know, I don't know, who knows. I'm not a recruiter, so I can't say for sure, right? Maybe that's why I'm not a recruiter. It is funny though. Something that happens a lot, something I want to talk about, like applying for jobs. I don't know about you guys, but is the worst process in the world. It's so like, it feels so, I don't know. It's so discouraging. You know what I mean? I don't know if you guys feel that way, but like, it's funny because I've applied for jobs that I've been like qualified for, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, that's, you know, that's generally kind of what I need to do, right? It's like, you know, it's a job that I'd probably be okay at, right? And I don't get a call back. I'm like, oh, all right, so you know, what do I, you know what I mean? Like, it's weird. It's funny because it's like I'll apply for a job and I'm like, so I didn't get it. Okay, I'll even get the email back sometimes or whatever. And they're like, oh, you know, we went with somebody else. Cool. And then like that same project or that same company will then reach out and be like, oh yeah, somebody recommended you for this thing, or you know, or I talk to a friend and, oh yeah, let me just send you in real quick, and then they'll just immediately they'll like contact you, and it's very like, it's very odd. It's just so like, so I was like, in my mind, I'm like, well, so I'm not good enough to apply through the front door, but I'm like good enough to be called out by, you know, by somebody else that's like that's already in. And it's such a, I don't know, I feel like it's such a flawed like system. I don't know if you guys feel that way or not, but it's even talking with some friends that are like applying for work and stuff like that in places, and it's so like, I don't know, I feel like our industry really needs to like reevaluate like what we're doing in this application process, you know. I understand there's like thousands of people applying for jobs and stuff like that, and I get that, but it's just so like, if you've ever applied for a job in the entertainment industry, oh god, it's terrible. I don't recommend anybody do that. I'd rather, you know, that's why I'm so insistent when people ask me about like, oh yeah, you know, what do you like, what's the best way to find work? I'm like, fucking network, because applying through the front door is the worst shit you can ever do. I promise you that. It's, you might get a call, right? You absolutely might, but oh my god, it's so like, it's discouraging. It really is. I don't say it like that, but you know.
Yeah, no, I very much relate to that sentiment. I think it is a very discouraging process. I feel like half of my like message groups with like other people, like with any friend or anyone, we're all just like trying to encourage each other and like keep each other's hopes high.
Yeah.
As we go through the process, because sometimes it feels impossible. Like it feels impossible to like find a decent person to like ask questions to.
Yeah.
And I think that like something that I genuinely think is like, if they know your name and your face, that will like significantly improve your chances of like making it through the first initial processes. But it's so hard to get that. Like it's so hard to like find the right recruiters for like the right positions, to like reach out to them to ask them questions. Like you can't, like you might even if you find them on LinkedIn, it's like still not you like, you don't know what recruiters are for what job. And like I get why they have to hide that information. I mean, the recruiters would just be completely bombarded. But I mean, if you have, at the same time, like if you have a genuine question, and or also just kind of knowing that if that recruiter doesn't know your name, then your application's not gonna get picked anyway, which kind of creates a like catch-22 situation, almost, because you don't want to like harass people.
Yeah.
But the like, I don't know, I feel like it, at the same time, if they don't know anything about you, even if you're a wonderful artist, I just think you're not going to get picked. Referrals can like help too, but even then, like the person inside the company like sometimes has to also like they have to find the recruiter for the job, or the hiring manager, and they have to reach out to them directly. I've gotten interviews after technically being denied through my application process, but somebody reached out to the hiring manager, who then set up an interview with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard.
Yeah. I think it's like, I don't know. It's such a, I find it such a discouraging process for a lot of artists, because it's like you could have people that are amazing at what they do, and they just no calls back, and I'm like, how is this even possible? You know what I mean? Like, they would kill it, but there's just so many people. Like, it's just there's no way to truly, like, I guess make sure that everyone is seen. But it's almost like, I think for me, especially like right now, during this point in our industry, right? For those that don't know, it's a bad time out there for a lot of people. I'm not saying everybody is having a hard time or anything, but I am saying a lot of people are, and it's such a, I don't know, it's such a disgusting application process, because people that are highly skilled, like extremely good at what they do, are just unable to find work, and it's weird, it's so odd. It's such a I don't know, a harsh reality where, like, when finding work really is really can be a who type of situation, and obviously we don't want that to be the case, right? Your skills should always shine above all, right? Where it's, if you're good at something, then people should recognize you for it. But in reality, it really is like, you really gotta know people. You really have to get out there and interact with artists and art teams and stuff, because that's how you find work at the end of the day. Sorry, I'm not trying to like go anywhere with this, but the whole point, what I'm saying is, like, because I've this past, like, New Year / holiday break, it's been tough talking to some of my friends, because I'm like, it's there's a lot of people are really looking for work right now, and it's such a, I don't know, it's such a great industry to be a part of, but in times like this, it feels so like I don't know, I don't want to say disgusting, but it feels like not great, especially like the way some artists or some industries or places tend to treat their artists and whatnot, so. There it is. All right, Ian says, hey, Ken, I was thinking about your ref board, and I thought an underwater camera might have a shape language that can incorporate the Pokeball. Yeah, that's exactly it, dude. It's cool because, like, whenever we are, whenever we're like pulling references together, and I think that's the beauty of, like, working with a bunch of different people, right? And it really does come down to, like, what are your lived experiences? You know what I mean? I think something that I really try to emphasize whenever I'm, I guess teaching people this subject or talking to others about, design and all that, is like really try to incorporate like you as an individual. You know what I mean? Like, you have something to offer, and then, not talking about you specifically, but for everybody, right? Everybody has something to offer as a creative, right? And it's now, how do you incorporate your lived experiences? You know what I mean? So for everybody, as you're designing, as you're getting better and doing all these things, just remember that, like, you have lived experiences that you want to incorporate into your designs. For me, one of the bigger things that I like to do whenever I'm designing is kind of think back into some of my experiences. This is why you always see Mega Man pop up. That's why you always see, like, all these different references kind of pop up a lot, especially like camera stuff, where I was looking at the Nikon F2 for that kind of top section, right? Because I want that camera, by the way, for anybody that's wondering. If you have a Nikon F2, right? Ask your grandparents, ask your parents. If you have one, let me know. I'll buy it from you. But yeah, I think it's something where I try to incorporate these things because that's what makes you different. You know what I mean? And then this whole conversation about, finding work and stuff, right? It really does come down to what makes you unique, what makes you someone that's irreplaceable, somebody that the art team from whatever project, right, needs you. You know what I mean? Because if, let's say, for example, you're an artist that works, is looking for work, right? Let's say your trajectory was, oh yeah, I just took all the standard environment design. This is talking about environments because I'm an environment designer, right? Took all the standard environment design courses, all the prop design courses that everyone normally takes, right? And it's like, so what happens? It's like, well, congratulations, right? You're the standard environment designer, right? Which doesn't sound great. But it's just you're just the average person in this case, right? Something wrong with that. But when you want to stand out, there's not a lot of standing out that you can do in that scenario, right? But when you have hobbies, when you have interests that people can, I guess, understand and get behind and bring into the design world, right? Into your design, dude, it makes you so good, right? Because now you have a vision that is unique to you, and it's irreplaceable. You know what I mean? So for those of you that are like trying to like design and try to create something unique, look at those unique artists that you like, the people that are like that you find are some of the most unique artists that you know, right? And look at their work and ask yourself, like, well, what is it that makes them unique? You know what I mean? What is that thing that makes them different? And usually it's their interests. It's not their upbringing. It's not their their upbringing is they're raised a certain way, but not their art skills, right? It's not, oh, they took a different Viscom class than me. They took a different perspective class or whatever. No, it's usually not the case. It's usually they like something that other people haven't heard of, or they grew up watching something that other people had never experienced before. I had a friend that we went to school together. His name is Jeff Hong. If you don't know who he is, look him up. It's Jeff Hong. Jeffhong. But he has such a unique, I guess, design language, right? It's particular, right? It's something where it is something that is, I guess, very particular to him specifically, right? Like it's a look. And so if you know it, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But whenever you see it, it's like, dude, yeah, it's like I'd never seen anybody that designed like this at all ever, But it's cool because he designs just from stuff that he like. We asked him one time, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I just referenced these people." And when you actually see the references, you're like, "Oh shit, that's exactly what he was referencing," But because we were very limited in our design experience, we had no idea who these people were, So well, that's kind of cool. You guys got any questions? You guys in the Discord? You guys in the YouTube live? What the? Don't do it. Oh, what are the Kenpachi says? What are the things that inspires you in your art? What makes you you? Ooh. Man, I don't know, man. I think that's probably why I'm average. But I something that I find that helps me out a lot is that I like to tinker with stuff. So I'm a tinkerer. Like whenever I get stuff like I mod old Game Boys and stuff. in my free time, or when there is free time, or like I kind of like take things apart and mess with it and this and that, right? I kind of like to dig into a lot of those small things, and because of that, a lot of my art, like a lot of my technical art and stuff like that, like my mechs and robots and a lot of stuff like that, even to like my like designs, right? They can get very like technical and very real and very like, I guess, very functional. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's weird because I don't know if I can answer that for myself, to be completely honest, because like I guess I have a couple things that I do. You know what I mean? Like, so for example, whenever I'm working, right? I do a lot of color keys and a lot of matte paintings for one of the projects that I was on, which is, you know, I guess something that I did. And then another thing that I do is, I guess I design like a lot of hard surface stuff. So it's like, because part of my design process is very like, maybe it's something I developed over time, but it's a very emotional response to things. Very like, I guess the art that I'll do, like, so for example, the color keys, right? You have to design in a very emotional way, right? Where like you're designing a feeling, you're designing like, you know, you have to design, I guess, the moments. You're not designing a thing, you're designing a scenario, right? If that makes sense. Like, you know, when you see a sunset, it's like, feels warm. Like you can't design warm. You have to make them feel warm, right? Which there's a litany of things you can do to kind of make that happen. But it is something where there is part of me that really likes doing that stuff, that story driven design aspect, right? But then other parts of me like really enjoys doing technical things, where like, you know, really making sure things work and doing all these extra things. And it's for me it's really fun. So I don't know, it's hard to say. You'd have to actually ask my leads or whoever I've worked with to like really figure out like what I'm good at, you know. Because to be honest, I don't know. I've never felt that I was actually really that good at a lot of different things, you know. And it sounds funny, but it's like, you know, whenever you're working, you never really know what people respond to. Because I think for me, it's been a lot of like, it's funny. One of my portfolio questions, right? Like whenever I get interviews for anybody, for anything, right? I always have to ask like, hey, what did you respond to? Because there's so many different things in my portfolio that I have to like ask them like, hey, what did you like? Because I wouldn't be able to pinpoint it if you didn't tell me, you know, kind of thing, right? And it's a very funny, interview question, but I have to do it because, you know, sometimes I'll get questions where it's like, oh, we really like the Call of Duty stuff that you did, right? And then there's like, oh, we really like the Hearthstone stuff that you did. We really like the animation stuff, which is like all different things, because of the nature of like where I've worked and things that I've done, you know. So, but it's always been a fun process to figure all that stuff out. Sorry, not a good answer, but to be honest, man, I don't know if I have a good answer for you. Just because like I'm always like trying to figure out myself like what I like to do, you know. Ian says, are you thinking about how the spirit is going to change the shape of the camera as you're designing? I kind of am. So what Ian's referring to is in the project, right? There's going to be a spirit that occupies this space, right? There's going to be and there's going to be a deformation that happens to the camera to make it feel the way it's supposed to feel. So, you know, how am I thinking about that right now? To be honest, I'm not really, right? Just because I don't even know what the main shape is going to be like quite yet. So I'm just kind of at this point in time, I'm kind of just experimenting just to see how things kind of go. You know what I mean? I think once I have a better idea of what this final shape is going to be, that's kind of when I'm going to, you know, I guess incorporate, I guess that design idea a little bit better. You know what I mean? So at the moment, I don't really quite have an idea just yet. Should I? Probably, you know, to be honest. But I want to make sure that I have something that I guess kind of makes sense, kind of functions the way it needs to function, and then I'll kind of make that up because I did have a slight idea, right? If you actually look at the camera here, so there's already like these two like circles up top, and then you know then there's the whole lens itself. And then, you know, there's a whole bunch of different things, lines that you can move to kind of make something happen. So it's already kind of built into where there's the possibility of it, I guess, emoting or creating facial expressions and stuff. So I'm not too worried about that just yet. But I am trying to make sure that this camera, at the very least, kind of has that rugged, I guess, vintage camera feel to it. And then trying to figure out what that attachment piece or what these different kind of things are going to do as we're kind of going. So, but this is for me, this is design at the end of the day, right? This is me figuring out like, I don't know if this is going to work or not, to be honest, right? Because I'm like, you know, is this going to work at all? I don't know. You know, does this look dumb? Probably. So we're kind of just going. I like this for those watching me for the first time, or for those for watching me at all. Whenever I design, I really try, especially during these phases here, like whenever we're just like watching me do something, I really try to make sure that I'm not, I guess, pre-planning things too much, because you know when you see the process, when you see it's like, oh, he knows exactly what he's doing. Yeah, because I planned it. You know what I mean? I don't really want that to happen, just because. It doesn't really help, but I guess for me, I always find watching an artist kind of stumble through something and how they troubleshoot their way out of it, I think for me has always been the most interesting. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. Well, that's what I believe I'm doing right here. We'll let you guys be the judge of that. So Kenpachi says, random question: what's your top 3 anime or manga? Ooh. So, let's see. Top 3. Okay, I don't know if I can give you an order. I'll tell you what the top 3 are. And it like, I guess, you know, because you like, yeah, right? Like, you know, there's the favorites that you have. But then I'm wondering, like, you know, because sometimes, like, you're watching One Piece, for example, you're like, shit slaps, dude. This is like the best anime in the world. And then there's episodes where it's like, this thing is garbage. How is it going on for 1,000-something episodes? You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So, with that in mind, I would say top 3. One Piece is definitely somewhere in that 3. And if you're somebody that doesn't like watching One Piece, I'm sorry. But there's a reason why it's 1,000-something episodes in. You know what I'm saying? If you haven't seen One Piece and you're like, it's too long, I would venture to say it's not long enough. But that's just me. So that's, I don't want to say that's number 1, but that's in the top 3. What else is there? What did I enjoy watching? Top 5, bro. I don't know, man. I need to look it up. I need to like look up what I guess top anime of all times. I just finished watching Evangelion again recently. I watched it as a kid. Like on you know on TV when it would pop up. And I'm now watching again as an adult. My God, if you guys have seen Evangelion, what the fuck? if you think it's an anime about robots fighting, it's not. It really isn't. What else is there? There's like so many to pick from. All right, hold up. All right, we got this. All right, Cowboy Bebop is in. No, sorry. Samurai Champloo, sorry, is in the top 3. I don't know where, but it's in the top 3. All right, what else we got? The reason that Cowboy Bebop slipped because I'm actually rewatching that again too. I was sick, so for those that don't know, those that couldn't tell, I've been sick for this last freaking like half month, 2 weeks. And so I was just like, when I'm laying there, I'm just kind of like watching anime or something. So that's why it's like those two are like fresh on my mind right now. But what else is there? Oh, I think Anohana would have to be probably high up there too. You guys have seen that. It's probably out of nowhere too, but if you haven't seen it, don't watch it. It's really good. It makes you cry, like ugly cry, not like shed a tear. This is like, like you lost a pet type of cry. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a good cry. So, but yeah, that's top 3. I don't know what order they go in, but I will say those are the tops. I haven't seen the standalone complex one. I've seen Ghost in the Shell, right? I've seen the movie. I haven't seen the standalone complex. I was told to watch that. Like I need to. I'm gonna watch it soon, but I haven't seen it yet. I'll just for you, Ian. I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up as soon as possible. I'll let you know. All right, dude, look at that camera, bro. Look at that. All right, this lens looks dumb. Let's fix that. So let's do mesh. Mesh cylinder. There you go. Look at that beauty. Shade auto smooth. There you go. So, what do we got here? So, all right. This is I'm gonna go for like maybe a couple more minutes on this, but I'm gonna kind of start showing you guys what I plan on doing with this, right? So, something that happens a lot, I will say, especially in entertainment design, is that we'll get I'll get designs like this where it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's nothing like right about it. You know what I mean? And it's cool. And what I want to kind of show is that something that happens, especially with 3D models, right? This is particularly a 3D modeling problem that I see a lot. Is whenever we design a prop, right? It's like, in this case, we have a camera, right? And there's interaction points and there's things that are doing certain things, all right? So we'll see this and we're like, cool, we have a prop. Great. And then we'll submit this, right? We'll take screenshots. We'll be like, oh, wow, look at that. Bam. You know what I mean? And you'll get like a top view, side view. Like, look at all these designs that I did, right? And what I want to point out to everybody is this is one design, right? This happens a lot, particularly for environments where I'll get, especially like in a work setting, where we'll do a design for a space, right? And you know, it's like it looks pretty cool, right? And they'll take like 50 screenshots and we'll submit it, right? What I want to emphasize to everybody is whenever you design, especially in 3D, try your best to do multiple designs, multiple things. This is one, right? This is one thing. This is one camera. Doesn't matter how many screenshots you get out of this, it's still one. So whenever I'm gonna do my next pass, my another version, right? What I'm gonna do is actually make a whole nother camera, right? Because what I don't want to do is do a design like this and then just take like 50 screenshots. Because if they don't like this orientation, if they don't like this, I guess, you know, the way I kind of went about it, then you kind of end up with a design that's too similar, right? If you just have multiple angles of it, and every design kind of gets shot down, not just that one. You know what I mean? So just as a tip for everybody, just understand that whenever you're designing in 3D, there's a real it's really easy to look at this and be like, oh cool, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna take this and we're just going to kind of roll with it, right? We're just going to just start designing with it, right? But you only have, this is one design, this is only one thing, right? Just remember that this is one design, and you really want to push how many different designs you can do in this, right? So, and for that, you know, that might sound very basic, you know, and it probably is. A lot of this stuff is actually pretty basic, but I really want to emphasize that because there is a tendency, especially in 3D, to allow the different angles to, I guess, kind of say stuff for us, right? It's like it allows us to kind of get away with like, oh yeah, that's one view right there. Cool. That's two. That's three. No, that's just the turnaround of the same thing. You know what I mean? All right. Kempachi says, okay, silly question. How do you see yourself in 10 years? Any plans for the future, like career, projects, family, etc.? Ooh, it's not a silly question. That's actually a great question. And I would actually love to hear anybody else's, I guess, ideas, because for me, whenever I started concept art, right? Like whenever I started doing it, I'd start concept art. Whenever I started doing it, the idea was, this was my career. This is the thing that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? And, you know, if you asked me this, shit, not even like 5 years ago, like, you know what I mean? Like really not that long ago. I probably would have told you that, oh yeah, I probably would just move up in my respective field, right? Whatever I'm doing, be better at it. At the time, 5 years ago would have been what, 2019. So my goal would have been to probably move into animation at that point, because I was at a mobile game studio at that point in 2019. Yeah, January of 2019. Yeah. No, I would have been leaving my first studio, going into that mobile game studio, right? And I guess my goal would have been, oh yeah, to keep kind of moving forward, get into AAA games or, you know, movies, this and that, to be better, essentially, right? But now, 5 years later, to be honest, 10 years from now, I really hope to not be doing this. I'm just gonna be real with you, because not like art, not like out of art as a whole, right? I still want to do art. I still want to create stuff, but I don't want to create stuff for somebody else. You know what I mean? I want to kind of move into my own projects, whatever form that may take. You know what I mean? But what I want to do is I want to get into creating for myself, right? I don't know what form that's going to be. I don't know what that entails. But what I do know is at this point in my life, right, I'm looking for freedom. I'm looking for the ability to choose what I want to do. Something that's been made painfully obvious for a lot of people in the entertainment industry this past year, couple of years, is that they don't really care about you. Surprise, right? They're not really, entertainment companies aren't really trying to help you out. You know what I mean? It sounds funny. It sounds like, oh, no way. They love me. You know, they said we're family. You know what I mean? Like, it's always, it sounds funny. It sounds like odd, you know, but at the end of the day, it's just like, you know, these companies, they don't care about you. Just if you have a company that cares about you, they're either one, lying, or two, they don't know yet. You know what I mean? Like it's not that they don't know, but like, you know, it's not personal. It's just business at the end of the day, right? You know, the same company that told me that we were family, right? They were like, oh yeah, you know, you guys, we're gonna try to keep you guys, we're gonna try to do whatever, right? Let go of half their staff whenever you know, their stock didn't quite hit the projected numbers. You know what I'm saying? Same company, same motherfuckers. You know what I mean? It's not personal, right? It is what it is, right? It's just inconvenient to have you on the payroll at that time. There's nothing, you know, it's not like malicious, right? They're not trying to hurt you, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. The numbers hit the thing, and the people said they needed to do the thing to stay afloat, and I get that, you know. So for me now, what I'm looking for is the ability to choose what I want to do, because when that happens, for me, I guess I don't really like, I guess, being at the whim of somebody else, right? I don't really like having to rely on somebody else's, I guess, numbers, their business numbers, to kind of stay alive. You know what I mean? So it sounds very like idealist, right? Or whatever you want to call it. But I think for me at this point in my life, I really am looking for freedom. I'm really looking for the ability to choose the projects that I want to work on and do the things that I want to do. And oftentimes, you know, anytime you work for a studio, right, it's not really what you want to do, it's what they need you to do, right? Which is, you know, understandable. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that's not what I want to do. You know what I mean? So what I'm looking for in 10 years is the freedom to kind of work where I want to work, you know, and be part of the projects that I want to be part of, you know. That would be the best. I don't know if it's gonna work out. I don't know how possible of a scenario I can make that happen, but as an individual artist, but we'll see what happens. It's funny too, because like there's you know, there's things that you can do to help kind of maintain that freedom, right? I think for me, for everybody, right, getting your first job is great. I think it's probably the best thing you can do, right, for your career. For the first step, right, is just get a job. But the next thing you want to start doing is start giving yourself the freedom and the runway to kind of do what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, I think once I got my first, like, you know, I guess higher paying job, right, where I'm not making, you know, freaking scraps. my first goal was figure out my finances, right? Really make it so I was able to, I guess, stay afloat on my own, because my first job was enough for me to pay rent, but, you know, paycheck to paycheck, where it's like, if I didn't make the next paycheck, then rent was not being covered. You know what I mean? Like, that was bad, right? But, you know, after a while, I was saving up money. I was like, cool, I have 2 months worth of rent right now. Great. And the stress relief from that, right? I was young, so I was figuring out finances. But the ability to be able to not have to worry about next month's rent was huge, right? Because if you're ever worried about your finances, it's stressful as hell, right? Surprise, if you guys didn't know that. It sucks. But you know, that was my first, I guess, thing that I wanted to do, was really figure out, like, you know, how am I going to, afford the next month's, not this one that I'm about to pay, but the one after that, right? And just like saving up money, doing my thing. And eventually, I started making enough to where I didn't have to worry about rent anymore or my expenses. I was making enough to really to save up and do what I need to do. And then after that, it was then starting to get like a year's worth of funds kind of in order, like, an emergency fund, right? Rainy day, I get let go from whatever company or whatever, I have enough money to kind of do what I need to do, right? That was my intention, and it helped. Because if anything ever happens, I have a decent amount of money to kind of fall back on. And the reason I say this is so important is because there's going to be projects that you don't really like, that you don't really want to be a part of, right? Where it's like, for those of you like kind of starting to join now, I guarantee you, I don't know how, I don't know when, there's going to be an AI project that you're going to be asked to be a part of. You're going to work at a studio, and they're going to be like, oh, hey, we're switching to AI now. So with that in mind, what are you going to do, right? Because if you're pro AI, then it should be fine, whatever. If you're against it, right? Well, you have to leave, right? That's the choice. I'm not saying we should pick one or the other. I'm not trying to pick sides on, what people believe. You believe what you want to believe, but at the end of the day, your morals are going to be, challenged, right? Where there's the idea that this is your ability to pay for your life and for your family. So what are you going to do? Are you going to say, fuck that, and not take the paycheck, right? You're going to say no to probably something close to 150 grand, right? As a normal, maybe a senior level artist or so, right? Or are you going to compromise and because you can't afford not to, right? And that's the problem. I guess that's where, my dilemma kind of is, right? Where it's like they're going to ask you to do things that you don't want to do, and are you going to be able to say no, right? And I think of my scenario, I value my freedom more than anything, right? If I can choose to do something, I'd rather do it that way, even if it's less money. And I think trying to figure all that stuff out has been, for me, priority number one. Since I started kind of making, I guess, a certain amount that pays for my living and stuff like that, So, sorry, conversation got a little deep, but the reason I say all this is because a lot of that stuff is happening now. I'm starting to see studios and stuff ask their artists to do certain things, and some people are okay with that, some people aren't, and understanding that. Wherever you work, it's not about what you want to do. It's about what they need you to do, right? So. All right. Where are we at? Cool. Dude, look at that. That's a camera, bro. I'm going to save this before we lose it. Camera. All right. So I'm gonna stay for an extra probably like 20 minutes. I was about 20 minutes late to this stream, so for those of you guys kind of like wondering when we're gonna end, because it's 9 o'clock right now, or 9 o'clock my side. This is kind of where I will I'm gonna kind of keep going just to make up for that time, but just as a heads up. But hey guys, how's it going? How's life? Sorry, I didn't mean to make the conversation so deep.
I appreciate the talk because it's something that like everyone is kind of being exposed to, but hearing it from someone like you who's been working for several years in the industry kind of like comforts in a way, like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one thinking like, damn, we're all sinking.
Yeah. It's a weird time, to say the least. I think for me, like the understanding that, like, there's the idea that, you know, we want to work for these big studios, right? Like the dream is like to work for these AAA game studios or big movie studios or whatever. But the whole point is, you know, they want us to do stuff. They want us to make certain things, and it's tough, right? It's you know, and there's the moral aspect to what we are, I guess I don't know, expected to do, right? You know, there's the moral of like, you know, do you like AI art or anything like that? You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's good or bad, but what I am saying is that there are sides to that conversation, and you know, the less choices you have in your career, you know, as you're progressing through your career, I guess the less and less you get to choose, you know, on what you actually want to do. You know, I think like emergency funds, you know, having, you know, standing up for whatever it is that you want to do, it becomes extremely important. I think for me, like, I'm somebody that is very, very staunchly like work from home, right? If I can have my way, which I'm not saying I can or can't, but I'm gonna be full remote for the rest of my life, right? Just because, you know, my work-life balance is so much better. I enjoy doing the things that I do at home, and kind of maintaining that maintaining that lifestyle, right? Is that the most financially rewarding thing in the world? No. I'm gonna tell you that right now. No, it's not. It really isn't. They don't like that, you know. But do I have to be okay with that? Yeah, you know what I mean. Because you know, you can you know, kind of give in to whatever they're saying, and you know, and kind of work those jobs, right? And which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, somebody that enjoys doing things a certain way, you know, I have to be okay, I guess, leaving money on the table, essentially. You know, I have to be okay with the idea of not, I guess, working some jobs or not maintaining as much income for certain things. You know what I mean? So it's it's a very, I don't know, it's a very tough thing to kind of to force yourself to do, right? Especially when, you know, there's companies that will offer you, you know, 150K, 160K, be like, hey, you want to come in? And you have to look at straight in the eyes and be like, I don't want to do that, you know. I mean, you know, I'm saying that for like work from home stuff, but you know, that conversation extends to anything, right? It extends to anything that the studio is going to make you want to make you do. And if you don't want to do it, then, you know, do you have the option to say no, you know? Sounds very spoiled when I'm talking about work from home, but it is what it is.
I know a lot of artists that prefer working from home.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because like, I don't know anybody that, like, I think I know like one or two people that are like, they want to work in office. I'm like, that's cool, man. You do you. But you probably won't see me there just because, I mean, you know, I'd rather hang out with my cat. I'd rather go do whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so like the LA traffic.
Oh yeah. You know, because you don't lose, right? Like for those that, you know, not living in LA or wherever, you know, you lose like 3 extra hours, you know, like having to go to a place to work, you know, and it's like, I mean, you're not getting paid for any of that, you know, so now your work-life balance is messed up. Your potential for income, for other sources of income, gets diminished, right? And you're, you know, miserable for an extra 3 hours of your day, and it's just like, dude, I don't want to do that, you know.
I feel so alone in this, but I genuinely do like going in places to work. Since I've been working from home for so long, like certain benefits of it have definitely grown on me. But overall, I would say that I miss interacting with people more frequently. I even if it's just like really quick interactions, like that is something that helps like boost my mood
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And I get distracted at home more easily. I've clearly been able to like do my work still for, work purposes. So it's been fine for the most part, but
Mhm.
I know like maybe some people are the opposite, but I just feel like being able to go somewhere that's not my bedroom where my office is set up right next to my bed, basically. But being able to go somewhere else to like do my work and being able to have like that separation
Mm-hmm.
of where I work and where I live is something I kind of like, but I feel like maybe that would be different, if I could afford the space to have an office be a different room of my house or something.
Yeah. No, it's definitely I would say a privilege, right? Like, because some people like, if you're renting or if you're, I mean, I'm renting too, so I mean, I'm in that same boat. But if you can't afford to have a separate office from your bedroom, from your living room, because my living room, right, this is like not half, but it's like a third of my living room kind of gets taken up by my office, and then my time to relax kind of, I guess I'm still next to my office, and I get that. I did have that same problem. I think when we first started, like I think whenever COVID first happened, I was really worried about it because I was like, because I'd done freelance before, and I was like, I just wasn't really effective at home because I was like distracted, or I kind of lost my rest space essentially. You know what I mean? There was, like exactly what you were saying, and it sucked. It really was, I guess, difficult for a while. But I think once I kind of like figured out my system, I think for me it's I don't know. It just made it so it was so much, I guess, nicer for me because now my ability to I guess do other things or to kind of I guess potentially make more income in other ways has been, I guess, exponentially increased, right? And then on top of that, even if like there's an extra like 3 hours that are kind of gone out of your day because there's an hour traffic there and back, and then all the other random things that you got to do or whatever. It's just like, I think for me, I just really enjoy the fact that I can just kind of just do like my laundry during the day, or I can eat at home, save money, do all these things. And I think my interactions with people kind of like, I just call them, you know what I mean? I think like but for at the end of the day, right, everyone's different. Everyone enjoys certain things, and you got to just understand that that's what you want to do. You know what I mean? I think it's not really right or wrong. I think it just comes down to what do you value? You know what I mean? So
I definitely don't miss the driving.
yeah.
I've had a lot of jobs in Irvine specifically, and I don't want to say specifically where I am.
Yeah, don't say
but
don't
with traffic, well, sorry, because you're streaming.
Yeah.
But like with traffic, it would be it would be like an average of like an hour each way, and I'm not even going into LA.
Yeah.
So it was gnarly. I knew people that worked where I was working in Irvine, and they were commuting from LA. There was like a carpool van, and they would like take turns who drove, who picked the others up.
Yeah.
It was gnarly. They would have like almost sometimes like 2 to 3 hour commute each way. And I was over here like, I wouldn't say grumbling about my 2 hour commute a day, like 1 hour each way, because I always have to drive during traffic times. But like, I feel like I had gotten so used to it that it was just like a part of my day. And I will definitely say that having those hours back, like while being at home, has been nice.
Yeah.
Being able to take naps on my lunch break, I know I've said this before, has been so nice. Like that's probably been the nicest.
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think it's because I like I have, I'm like I would say like I kind of fall between being extroverted and introverted because most of the time I'd say I'm extroverted, but sometimes like I can be introverted, but because of my extroversion, like I think that's why I like having like in-person human interactions. Like I do call and text my friends. I actually like to call my friends. I hate texting. I'm that person. um
Yeah.
but a lot of my friends like texting, so I try to meet them in the middle. um but I like having like in-person like human interactions too, and so I think that's where liking to go somewhere in person, I feel like helps me personally.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
Kenny, what's your personality type? Do you know it?
I don't know it off
Wait, can I guess?
All right, hit me up, Rachel. What is it?
I think maybe you're an INTJ.
INTJ? Which one's that one?
I think
No,
it's like a
hold up.
blood
Wait, is that
Really?
that's the purple one?
moon.
No, I forgot. Let me get that list. I forgot what letter it was. I did take the test though. I was where is it? INTJ test. I don't know it off the top of my head. So
Oh, I'm so curious.
where is it? It's
Are you introverted or extroverted?
it was. I think it was the. Was it the was it the entrepreneur? No, I think it was the adventurer. The ISFP.
ISFP.
I think that was the last time I
Oh.
took it, but it's been a while. Maybe I'm different. Who knows?
Cool.
I should take it again. We should do it live and just see what happens.
Yeah, I usually guess it right. So,
You can like,
yeah, I was close. I was so close.
you can like, because those. I remember taking that test, and I was like, you can kind of guess which letter this leads to. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Kenny trivia.
What are you? What are you,
More-
Rachel?
I'm INFJ.
INFJ. Which one's that? INFJ.
Um, wait, it's like the guy with the beard. A diplomat.
Diplomat.
Yeah, I'm an advocate diplomat.
Sick.
Yo, man.
So I have no idea what any of this means. Just being real with you. Just being real.
I guess it's just like how you see the world and how you like your brain processes
Yeah.
the world around you. Yeah. How you interact with others.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I took that test in like, I think it was like 2018, 2017 or something like that. It's been a while since I've taken it. I should probably take it again because it's funny because like I'm
Like,
very different than I was then. So
Mm,
I'll take it. I'll let you know. I'll tag you, Rachel. I'll
Let's
put
do
it. I'll
it.
put it in the
I'm
Discord.
excited. Yeah.
Sick. All right. Cool. So this is what we have. We have a camera. He's very camera-y. He has a lens and he has a thing on top, right? So what I want to do from here, right, is I want to start designing on top of this, right? Because right now, right, this is something that I like to do as much as I can. I like to bring things back to a 2D kind of feel as much as possible. So for those of you that are following along, doing the assignment, right? However you plan on doing this, what I recommend is, do a couple models, right? Do a couple rough sketches, whatever it is that you need to do, right? Draw on top afterwards, and then, start trying to develop your ideas more, because sometimes, well, like my modeling skills don't quite match my, I guess my thinking skills as quickly, right? Just because I don't naturally model that much, right? So depending on how you are, right, just kind of lean into that. So for me, what I'm going to do is, well, what I would normally do in this scenario is do maybe like 3 or 4 of these types of models, right? Pretty blocky, really not that crazy of an idea. Screenshot, render it, do whatever you need to do, draw on top of it, right? Start figuring out all the other things that you need for it, because, you know, you have, you know, 80% of a block out right here. Now we can, you know, kind of proceed further. I'll show you guys that more next week. I'm probably going to do a couple of these models in my free time and try to make something that's like, you know, vaguely kind of what I'm looking for. And then we'll kind of go from there. So, for the assignment, right, if you're following along, if you're doing this for the Livestream Plus people and, you know, for whoever's following along as well, right, this first pass that we're doing, we're looking for proportions. We're looking for the general idea and the general blockouts, you know, because right now I have that camera that I had, and then I have some attachments that kind of go on it, and then I can, you know, adjust it and do what I need to do with it, right? And then I'm going to do a couple different packages, and I'll show you what that means next week on, like, you know, because what if they don't want a 35 millimeter version? What if they want a more medium format camera? Whatever it is, right? So I'm going to spend some time and make this, you know, just better as a whole. And then I'll show you kind of how I develop the idea further going into the next week. So if you're following along, just try to do a first pass. If you're doing this in 3D, you know, you can make a quick block out. If you're doing this in 2D, you can work with silhouettes. You can do a lot of those smaller kind of, you know, sketches and stuff to try to get that ball rolling, right? So if you have any questions, sorry about that. If you have any questions on the process, or if you have any, you know, if you're following along too in the Livestream Plus section, you know, definitely just ask. Just kind of show me what you have, and then we'll kind of work. You know, I'll kind of work with you from there. But at the end of the day, right? The biggest thing that I want to kind of convey, you know, for this design, for this prop, is that there needs to be an idea, right? I kind of broke down at the beginning where, you know, I had this thought, right, where there's a camera, I think it's possessed by the spirit. And then, you know, as I kind of walked through it, I started figuring things out. I started adding things and, you know, establishing newer ideas. And I'm just kind of working through it, right? I don't really quite know where this is going to end up yet, you know, just like all the other designs that I've done. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I really want to kind of convey that the biggest thing that you want to make sure that you have, right, is this part right here, the general idea. If you have that, we can kind of work with something and make it better, right? If you don't, adding whatever tends to be, you know, you just kind of, it can end up being very random, you know what I mean? But when you design with a purpose, you know, it tends to make things a bit better. So that in mind, that's all I got for today, right? I'm sorry, I'm still like coughing and stuff. I'm still kind of working through, you know, the sickness and all that. But hopefully this helps, you know what I mean? If you want to participate in the challenge, we have the next challenge currently being voted on for about a week. So, you know, if you want to be part of that, you know, join the Livestream Plus membership in the Discord. You know, you'll get feedback on your assignments and whatnot, and you know, there's a lot of people in there right now. So we're hopefully this is going to be something that's pretty fun and exciting. But for now, you know, I just really appreciate everyone that kind of tunes in to watch. And yeah, we have 2 more weeks on this assignment. Starting February, we'll have a new topic. I'll announce that probably next week in terms of what it's going to be and, you know, what we're going to do with, you know, and all that stuff. So just kind of pay attention and look out for that if you want to be a part of that. With that in mind, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate, you know, you stopping by.